China has taken a bold and unexpected step in the ongoing global economic struggle, shifting the balance in a way that few in Washington had anticipated. For years, the U.S. had assumed it held the upper hand, confident in its currency, its trade power, and its control over global markets. But that confidence has given way to confusion. As tensions grew and U.S. officials demanded that China stop manipulating its currency, it wasn't the Chinese yuan that gave way. It was the U.S. dollar. The dollar dropped sharply, taking markets by surprise and sending shockwaves through the global financial system. American industries are now feeling the pressure. Tariffs that were once seen as a way to force China into economic submission are instead hurting U.S. businesses. Trade flows are drying up. Shipments from China have dropped by more than half, a dramatic decline that signals something much bigger than a temporary disruption. It's a sign that global trade patterns are shifting in a deep and lasting way. Retailers in the U.S. are struggling. Companies like Walmart and Target, already dealing with supply chain problems from the pandemic, now face serious shortages. Shelves are getting harder to restock. Inventories are running low. If trade conditions don't improve soon, stores could start running out of essential products in a matter of weeks. Inside the U.S. government, there's growing concern, but little direction. While some leaders push for stronger action, even calling on allies like the UK to cut ties with China, other nations are hesitant to follow. China, meanwhile, continues its strategy with patience and precision. This is not just a short-term play. It's a carefully planned economic maneuver built over decades. The U.S. had hoped that a weaker dollar would help boost manufacturing at home. The idea was simple: make American goods cheaper abroad, bring factories back, and compete more effectively with China. But the reality has been far more complicated. Since the beginning of 2025, the dollar has lost nearly 10% of its value. Yet, instead of seeing a revival in American industry, the country is facing high inflation and rising costs. Many supply chains still rely on Chinese parts, and with tariffs making those parts more expensive, American manufacturers are stuck. The very tools that were supposed to make the U.S. more competitive, like high tariffs, are now backfiring. Some of these tariffs reach as high as 145%. But without alternative sources, businesses have no choice but to absorb the costs or shut down production. The weaker dollar isn't helping. It's just making everything more expensive. As one economist put it, you can't fix a supply shortage by devaluing your currency. That one line now sums up the U.S. problem. In contrast, China has remained calm and focused. While the U.S. economy struggles, the Chinese yuan has only slightly weakened, a sign of careful control rather than chaos. Instead of reacting with panic, China has injected over $1.5 trillion into its economy through targeted support, keeping domestic demand steady and exports strong. Its financial system has been reinforced, not rattled. As American shipping volumes continue to collapse, down 61% from China by April, alarms are ringing. The National Retail Federation has warned that if the situation doesn't stabilize quickly, shelves in American stores will begin to empty. Prices on goods are already spiking. Electronics are up 32%, furniture by 45%, and core consumer prices jumped 1.1% in a single month. This goes beyond inflation. It reflects deeper problems in the economic system. Despite the growing signs of trouble, U.S. leaders maintain that tariffs are just a short-term tool. But time is running out. The U.S. economy isn't bouncing back. The dream of bringing manufacturing home and revitalizing American industry is starting to fade. The Federal Reserve's March 2025 report paints a grim picture. Factory output is falling, capacity is underused, and costs continue to rise, especially in sectors like construction and machinery that still depend on Chinese imports. Job openings in manufacturing are shrinking too. According to the latest data, there's been a 17% drop year over year. The pieces just aren't there anymore. Raw materials, skilled workers, and reliable supply chains are all missing. And the falling dollar, instead of giving the economy a boost, is driving up prices even more. Another economist summed it up clearly. This isn't clever economic strategy. This is dysfunction. Meanwhile, China continues to move forward with quiet confidence. Its central bank is using the drop in the dollar to strengthen the domestic economy. The yuan remains stable and exports are holding firm. With trillions poured into the financial system, China has kept liquidity flowing and growth on track. Its trade surplus is growing, and its position in global markets is solidifying. This isn't just a response to U.S. policy, it's a long-term plan being carried out with precision. While America scrambles, China is tightening its grip on global trade. And caught between these two major powers is Britain, trying to navigate the shifting economic landscape, unsure of which path to follow. The United States has been turning up the heat on Britain, urging it to cut economic ties with China. But the numbers make one thing clear. That's easier said than done. In 2023, China provided over 7% of UK imports and bought just over 4% of its exports. Cutting those links wouldn't just be disruptive, it would hit core industries hard, especially electric vehicles and pharmaceuticals, which rely heavily on Chinese parts and components. Chancellor Rachel Reeves has pushed back against the idea of decoupling, calling it economic suicide. But despite her warnings, the pressure from Washington continues to mount. In Parliament, the debate simmers, but elsewhere, signs show the UK is quietly making its own decisions. The London Stock Exchange is preparing for more Chinese IPOs, and the broader message is clear. Britain is not ready to slam the door on Beijing. This has sparked criticism from across the Atlantic. Former White House official Peter Navarro accused the UK of bowing to China, even calling it a compliant servant in the Telegraph. But behind the rhetoric lies a far more complex picture. Global alliances are shifting. National interests are no longer perfectly aligned, and Britain seems determined to follow a different path. Instead of following the US's aggressive approach, the UK is choosing caution. It's still welcoming Chinese investments and even considering hosting a major Shanghai IPO in London, an unmistakable sign of divergence. A leaked cabinet memo obtained by The Guardian reveals growing discomfort within the UK government about America's tariff-first strategy. One senior official even described Washington's push as economically self-destructive. So while the US doubles down, Britain is recalibrating. Not because it's afraid of taking a stand, but because it must. Automatic alignment with US policy no longer fits the moment. The UK is beginning to shape a more independent foreign policy, one that focuses on long-term resilience rather than headline-grabbing gestures. Still, the political noise remains loud. Navarro warned in a speech that if China can't suck American blood, it will suck the UK dry. But the facts don't support that kind of fear-mongering. In reality, Chinese investment in the UK fell by 27% in 2024. British regulators have blocked access to sensitive infrastructure, including the decision to ban Huawei from the country's 5G network, a move led by MI5. So no, Britain isn't rolling over. It's navigating a tense global moment with care. Former National Security Council advisor Fiona Hill sees this not as weakness but as strategy. She argues that Britain isn't picking sides, it's picking stability. It treats trade as negotiation, not war. And there's good reason for that approach. Both the US and the UK are under pressure at home. America's GDP shrank by 0.3% in early 2025. Real wages are down. In the UK, youth unemployment is rising, and new housing construction is down more than 20%. These are not times for risky moves. That's why trade policy today is about much more than just trade. It's about politics, economics, and survival. Every tariff, every deal, every headline is shaped by both global rivalries and domestic concerns. Political scientist Dr. Wenty Sun describes this as a two-level game, where leaders must juggle foreign tensions with public expectations at home. Trump is promising to bring industry back to America. Reeves is betting on a balanced multipolar future. Neither can afford to lose face. Meanwhile, China and the US both claim they're open to talking, but neither is making the first move. China's Ministry of Commerce says it's still assessing the situation. The US Treasury says negotiations are possible. But beneath the polite language is a strategy of silence and ambiguity, echoing the old Cold War days when uncertainty itself was used as a tool. A post on Chinese social media put it bluntly. The US must be the more anxious party. Still, U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has hinted that a deal could be on the table if China is ready to engage. But for now, the ambiguity continues, not by accident but by design. Meanwhile, financial warning lights are flashing. By April 2025, over $17 billion in short positions were placed against the US dollar, up sharply from earlier in the year. The Bloomberg Dollar Index is down nearly 10% since January, pulled down by trade gaps, policy confusion, and declining imports. The gap between yields on U.S. and Chinese government bonds has shrunk to levels not seen since 2006, making American assets less appealing to global investors. According to Morgan Stanley's analysts, this is no longer just a trade issue. The dollar itself is caught in the crossfire of a larger battle over global economic power. While the U.S. stumbles through inflation and uncertainty, China is carefully managing a slow float of its currency and injecting over $1.5 trillion in stimulus,